Hey everyone, I'm Belle Reid and welcome back to another video. So today I want to do something that's a little unusual for my channel, which is to share a personal story with you about a creative experience I had that completely changed my life, causing me to pivot from being a classical trumpet player to becoming a performer-composer who makes experimental electroacoustic music with trumpet, modular synths, and electronics. I want to share this story here because I'm pretty sure that there are at least one or two people out there, perhaps feeling a little unsure of your musical direction or struggling to get things off the ground or knowing what your next step is. And if me sharing this story could be potentially helpful for you, that would be really great. And I sincerely hope that it is. So early on in my musical studies, I was trained as a classical pianist and a classical trumpet player. I went to university to study trumpet performance. And at that point in my education, the only next step that anyone ever spoke about after school was to start to audition for orchestral jobs. And if you've done that, you know that the blind audition process for orchestras is so intense and so insanely competitive. So around this time, I was really struggling with performance anxiety. I was basically practicing all day, every day. But when the time would come for me to actually get up on a stage, everything would completely fall apart. It's a little hard to admit, but when I say that I had bad performance anxiety, I mean really bad. I started to really seriously doubt myself and my capabilities as a musician. And toward the end of my undergrad program, I really seriously started to think about quitting music altogether. But at the same time, through all of this, I always kind of just knew that I was meant to play and make music. It was all I had ever done in my life ever since I was, 3 or 4 years old. I had, on the one hand, such a deep passion for music and a love for music. And on the other hand, just nothing was working. So most of my peers and classmates went straight into graduate programs after graduating or dove into the orchestral audition circuit. But I decided to take a year to keep practicing, to slow down a little bit, and to think about what I wanted to do with my life. I think I was working in a coffee shop at the time in Montreal, and I ended up meeting this young woman who's a composer, and she made very adventurous, avant-garde, performance art focused pieces. And we started talking, and one day out of the blue, she said, "Hey, do you want to collaborate on a piece of music?" And I remember in that moment having two thoughts at the exact same time. The first one was very loud, and it was, "Oh my God, Sarah, you are a terrible musician. You can hardly get through a performance. You obviously need to say no." And the other thought, which was much quieter, was, "Say yes. Go for it." Logically, it doesn't really make sense because everything was pointing me away from the collaboration. But for some reason, for the first time in a long time, I felt really excited and really curious about music. So I said yes. I had no experience in contemporary music, no experience in performance art. I had never done anything, avant-garde or experimental. But here I was in this collaboration. So for the next few months, we worked together and she composed me a piece of music. And it challenged me so much in every possible way as a performer and as an instrumentalist. It involved extended trumpet techniques and vocalizations, and there were theatrical and performance art elements. And I had no choice but to fully commit and to just dive in completely if I were going to be able to perform this piece. And I remember very clearly during the premiere concert of this work, about 2/3 of the way through the piece, there was a kind of lull in the music and there was a momentary silence. And I remember looking out into the audience, and for a split second, it dawned on me that for the first time, maybe forever, but definitely for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control. I still had nerves, I still had adrenaline, but they felt more like excitement than dread. It felt more like excitement than anxiety. And as I stood there, I was able to kind of slow down and appreciate the moment. And I felt a sense of belonging, a sense of belonging to playing that kind of music, to being in that environment, and for being on stage. And that was something that I had never felt before. Now, this experience alone, although it was very impactful, it didn't change everything overnight for me. But in retrospect, looking back, I can see that it did start a kind of ripple effect that influenced things for the next decade in a really, really big way. That year, a year later, I ended up getting the opportunity to move to the US to go to grad school, again for trumpet performance. And I remember walking in the doors of my new school. I had just arrived. I got no more than 20 feet in the door, and there was an improvisation ensemble rehearsing in the room to my left. And I looked in, and for some reason, the woman who was leading the ensemble caught my eye, and she called out, "Hey, do you want to join us?" Now, at this point in my life, I had never improvised before. All of the music I had ever played was fully notated, and the thought of making up music on the spot without rehearsal, without planning, scared the crap out of me. I did not think of myself as a composer. I had never done anything except play other people's notes. And yet, just like before, as all of those thoughts flooded into my head, basically telling me to run the other way, there was also this kind of impulse, this quiet thought in the back of my head that said, say yes, go for it, do it. And my brain was telling me, Sarah, you do not belong in that room. You do not know how to improvise. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to disappoint everyone. But my heart was saying, ooh, I'm so curious. What will that be like? You should do it. You should say yes. And so I did. I honestly don't know where the courage came from, but I said yes. I walked into the room, I sat down, and within a few minutes, I had met 15 new people, and we were making music together. And, at first it was awkward and clumsy, and I probably wasn't very good at it, but that didn't really matter. What mattered was that I had put myself in that space, even though it didn't make sense. It wasn't part of the plan. I wasn't ready. I had no training. There's a million ways I could have talked myself out of doing it. But there was one little thing that said, go for it. And by listening to that, I ended up opening up a huge new world of music and creativity, which was the world of improvisation and the world of kind of just experimental sound in general. Learning about the world of free improvisation opened up the world of experimental sound, which led me to discover the world of electroacoustic music, electronic music. Then I discovered things like digital audio workstations and modular synthesizers. And if you've been on my channel before, you know that I'm a huge nerd and I love modular synths because of what they open up for me and what they can open up for others in terms of creativity and listening and creative expression. I fell in love with sound itself. All of the beautiful little imperfections and the pops and clicks and hisses and whooshes of electronic circuits. And then I realized I could start to explore and listen to sound in the same way on my trumpet. Learning modular synths and getting really deep into sound design opened up my vocabulary on the trumpet. I started to play in different ways that I'd never played before. And then I started to combine those worlds together. And that is where I truly feel like I found a musical language that to me feels just aligned and right and fun. Now, your story, of course, is going to be different from mine. But the real thing that I wanted to share today is that if you are finding yourself at a kind of creative crossroads, maybe you've just graduated from school and you have no idea what your next step is or how things are going to work out. Or you've been away from music and you're coming back into it after years or decades away. The real thing that I wanted to share with you today is to trust those little nudges. Listen to the little voice way back, the back of your head, the quiet one that's saying, go for it. Even though the much louder voice up here is yelling at you saying, no, 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 don't do it. You're not ready. You're too far behind. You're not good enough. Whatever it's saying, don't listen to this one. Trust this one back here. I know it's easier said than done. I know that this is scary. For sure. But trust me when I say that if you listen to that little nudge, that little voice, even if no one else is doing it, even if it doesn't make sense, it's not part of the plan, if you go for it, things will work out. They will unfold. And you don't even know what amazing things might be just a few steps ahead. At each one of the steps along in my journey, the decision that I made to say yes to something honestly kind of made no sense at all, right? It wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't something I had training in. It wasn't something I was experienced in. It wasn't something that I even thought of 5 days before. It wasn't something any of my friends were doing. But I did it anyways because I felt this tug, this kind of impulse. And for me personally, listening to those impulses is what made the difference between quitting music entirely and just giving it all up and packing it all up to growing into the musical life that I now have today, where I get to compose and perform my own music. I get to record and perform with amazing artists. I get to mentor students all over the world in synthesis and sound design and electronic music. And these are all things that I never imagined I would be doing back when I was doing my undergrad degree as a classical trumpet player. So if you're at a point where you have no clue what your next step is, or even what you want to be doing, but you know that you want to stay in music, I just want to say, keep going, keep exploring, keep playing, and follow the things that light you up, even if they're not part of your previous training, even if they're not part of the plan, even if no one else is doing them, especially if no one else is doing them, follow those nudges. And if you're someone who already does kind of know that there's something you really, really want to do, but you're not taking action on it because you're not sure if you'll succeed or how people will respond to it, I want to say, go for it. Even if it doesn't become your big thing, it might be the thing that leads you to the next thing, and that thing might totally change your life. You never know. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that you found this helpful. If there's someone in your life who you think would benefit from hearing this, please pass it along to them. And if this video is something that you got something out of, I would really love to know. I've never shared a video like this before on YouTube. So if you liked it, I would love to hear. Send me a DM, leave a comment. And remember, it's okay if you don't know how it's all going to go. Okay? It's okay to not have a perfect plan. Keep listening, keep exploring, keep making things, keep learning things, keep trying things, keep being curious. Keep following all of the things that light you up, and it will all come together. I've left some links in the description below this video to some resources. One of them is a free introduction to modular synthesis class that I put together. So if you're curious to learn more about electronic music and synthesis and sound design, you can follow that link, get yourself signed up. It's completely free, and you can get started there. I've also left a link to my Patreon community, which is a wonderful community of people who are passionate about things like experimental music, synthesis, sound design. We do monthly hangouts and virtual listening parties, and I frequently share behind the scenes content and unreleased music. All right, that's it for today. As always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.